you need an inspiration. You get a great melody for chorus. You need to know what the song's about. You need to know what's the deep emotion. Then there's kind of how am I going to tell this story in 3 verses or 4 verses? How is it going to move on so that there's new information in each verse?
Amazing. Well, I'm Adam again, and this is about you, your journey in music, and I want to talk to you about the new record you have coming out as well.
Fantastic. Excited to do that with you. And thank you.
Awesome. Oh, of course, of course. I'm really excited to actually ask you about the song San Diego when you coming home, because I'm from San Diego and I want to know the tie there.
Oh, okay. That was from the last record.
Right.
Right. So my journey in music has been interesting. My wife encouraged me at first. She said, if you're going to do this music thing, you got to go travel around and, play in front of strangers. That's the only way you're going to figure out if you're any good. And I said, okay. So the band signed up for a couple opening act tours going around the country, playing for Brendan James and Stephen Kellogg.
Okay.
And, so we did 50 shows, I guess, in 2019. But before then, she had encouraged me and pushed me out there. But then once we were traveling, she kind of was like, hey, wait a second, you're not home.
Right.
And there was a conversation, and, we all get emotional sometimes. And she basically said, that's it. I'm moving to San Diego. And
oh, really?
we were actually, the band was hanging out in New Orleans at the time. And she didn't really want to move to San Diego, except in the moment, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But I thought, wow, that's a good line for a song. You got to be careful when you get into a thing with your partner who actually writes songs. They're going to take your line. So
right.
I'm going to move to San Diego came from that. And
okay.
That's the only time in that song, the only time you hear San Diego.
I know.
Maybe I'll move is to San Diego or Peru.
Right? And then it's never brought up again. So I was kind of like, I wonder why you decided on San Diego and what the tie was there.
Well, I just, it was one of those things, when you have a strong bond with somebody and you get into a contention, stuff comes out, and I'm like, okay, sure. We'll express it. That song has evolved over time, but it's still one of our favorite live things to do.
Yeah, it's a great song. Very, very cool. So you were born and raised in New Jersey? Is that what I read?
I was. Both my parents were foreigners. My mom was a small town doctor from Brazil, and my dad was Austrian.
Oh, wow. And then they moved to the States. Like, I mean, were you the first generation born here?
I was, yeah. They came much later in life. My, my mom came for a degree after she was a small town doctor. Her dad was the town doctor, the only one in town. She went to medical school, an early woman in Brazil going to medical school. And then she came back, and as soon as she got back to town, her dad had a heart attack, and she became the town doctor.
Oh, wow.
He did that for a number of years and then applied for a grant from the American Women's Medical Association to get a postdoc at UNC. So she came there to get her graduate degree, and that's where she met my dad, who had escaped the war in Europe and, eventually made his way to the States.
Wow. Okay. So then you were born in Jersey, and I know obviously you have a totally, you have a life outside of music, quite a big thing going on with math and like everything else you're doing as far as the hedge funds and everything else. But I'm curious, like, how did you get into music originally?
So I took piano lessons and learned classical piano as you did back then, learning scales and things like that in classical pieces. And after 5 years, I was bored to tears, and I quit, and I was done. And then I ran into a friend of mine, a guy named Tom DeTosto, who I'm still friends with. And he said, Pete, you're into piano. I've been taking these jazz improv lessons from this cool guy named John Amadeo, who lives in Denville, and you might like it. And I thought, sure, why not? And so I checked it out, and I went there every week for, it was less than 2 years. My dad drove me. John was a studio musician who had a a very attractive wife, and he got to chat with her while we were doing lessons. So he didn't mind doing the drive every week. And I was a
love that.
teenager. I was a teenager, and I didn't practice that much, but I learned how to improvise. And John was cool. If I didn't practice, whatever, he said, "You just sit down at the piano. I'll be at the drums. You know, go ahead." And I just got turned on to the fact that if you're gonna spend a life doing music, being able to create it is what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
About getting that emotion out from inside you and figuring out how to get it to the world. So that's how I started, by learning how to improvise. And then,
Wow.
you know,
And you got to
later on,
play with, he was playing drums also while you were playing piano?
he played everything, you know.
Yeah, but that's cool to be able to kind of start off by playing with somebody, right? I mean, that's a totally different skill set in itself when you learn to play.
Totally learning how to keep time, play with a band, you know, that's a tricky one.
For sure,
But
for sure.
for me, that was really learning jazz and improvisation, and that was kind of my path for a while. But then later on in life, I went through a tough breakup, and the only way I really, you know, I was always playing the piano, but I turned myself so completely into building this business that was, I mean, it was something I was really passionate about. It was math and investing and all that. We don't have to talk about it,
Right.
but
I'm curious about that too. I don't know if you
we
mind
can
saying.
we can totally hit that. I'm happy.
Okay.
But I stopped playing music, and my life kind of blew up because there was all this stuff inside me that wasn't coming out. I had a relationship that blew up, and it just kind of broke my heart. And the only way, I went with a friend to Hawaii, and we were hiking around, and I found a piano at a hotel and started playing. And he said to me, "Oh man, you need to be doing that more, because that's the first time I've seen you light up since this happened."
Wow.
And I realized that I'd left behind playing music. And that's what got me into songwriting. And I started writing, you know, typical songs that initial songwriters start writing. Oh my God, this is so awful. This has never happened to anybody before. Nobody's ever felt like this before. Oh my God, my heart is broken in a million pieces. How could she do this? How could that? And, you know, it was a particularly lurid story. So it led to a lot of writing. And I realized, okay, wait a second. So part of that is emotional processing. That's great. But if you want to connect with people outside, you have to, you know, make it universal and have it resonate. So I started studying songwriting. I actually applied and got into graduate school of musical theater at Tisch.
Really?
And I went for 6 whole weeks. And this was right before 9/11. And then I decided I didn't want to spend as much time in New York City. But during those 6 weeks, I learned how to, I learned constructive criticism in a song circle. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And if the program had been pop songwriting, or, you know, the kind of music, Americana songwriting, the stuff that I love doing, I would have stayed. Musical theater just didn't turn out to be my thing. So I applied what I learned there, and I took over a friend's song circle and started hosting people at my apartment every week for about 5 years. And I would make them dinner, and we would all bring songs.
Wow.
You'd show up with your songs. You'd print out 2 lyric sheets for everybody. We'd have a great meal, and then we'd sit down, and everybody would play their song, and you play it twice, and then people would comment. And it was this great community. And I, you know, wrote so many songs and grew as a songwriter doing that. And did a couple albums. So that was kind of the beginning of my musical journey.
Interesting. Wow. Well, real quick, so you said you left music for a while, and was that when you were going through like college and everything? Like, how old were you when you decided to revisit piano, and when you were in Hawaii? Do you remember?
You know, I'm not great at talking about my age.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to ask you for a date, but like, were you had you finished college at this point? Were you?
Oh yeah, no. I'd already finished college, and I had worked in California. And
okay.
I'd worked with a bunch of really smart math, financial people, but I had a very balanced life. I had a band I was playing with every week. So I was playing music, and I was into it. It was a part of my life. I wasn't singing, but I was jamming, and, you know, I was on the piano a lot. And then when I got this opportunity to build a group that was, you know, just my dream, you know, can you build a quantitative group to beat the market? You know, it was just like, I had played poker. I was good at poker. I was like, okay, I think I can figure this out. And it turned out to be really, really hard, but I'm a competitive person. And so I was like, I think I could figure this out. And I did. And I built a great team with a great culture inside a bank. And hit a home run with it, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. And I dropped music, and I didn't mind it for a while because I was pursuing this single-mindedly. It was really cool and fun. But
Hmm.
once we got to the point where we were really successful, I thought, okay, I've proved what I wanted to prove. And then I didn't go back to the music in time. So
Okay.
a 5-year period where, I mean, I had a grand piano in my apartment. I would play it. It wasn't like I never touched it, but I wasn't really
Like
developing or letting it.
actively pursuing it, right?
Yeah, I was just exhausted by what I was doing mentally.
Uh-huh.
And so that was the period. And so
Okay.
after that, kind of going back to 2000, that's when I got back into it.
Okay. Okay.
So if
So,
we pick up the story, so we did a couple albums, and then I took
mhm.
I ended up getting married. The woman I was telling you about before, I met her in 2005, my wife Jillian,
Okay.
and I still remember on our second date, I played her all these songs, and she was excited. Wow, you're okay. You're a successful guy, but you also love playing music. Okay, this works for me. But then we ended up getting married, having kids, and somehow, longer story that I'll tell some other time, I ended up going back to running the business. But when I did it this time, I said, I'm going to do music in parallel. And I did. I would, whenever I went to New York, because that's where the company was, we moved to California, I would play down in the Village, a
Hmm.
place called Cafe Vivaldi that was really fun. But I wasn't writing as much. I wasn't exercising that songwriting muscle. And we had a couple kids,
Hmm.
and it wasn't, and then financial things happened that were kind of crazy in 2008, and our group ended up spinning out of the bank and becoming independent. So it really wasn't until 2013 or 14 that we were stable. We'd taken the whole group out of the bank. We had raised money. We were all set. And I thought, okay, back to music. I still have to do my third album. And I
Hmm.
did. That was 2014.
Okay.
And now the album we're talking about is
Was
just about to come out, and that's going to be album number 5.
wow. So between 2014 and what 2020 was the fourth record, correct?
Yeah, Dissolve came out. I think it was 2019, maybe.
2019.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 2019, I think was when
Okay.
Dissolve came out.
When were you doing that touring? Was that 2019 as well?
Yeah, I mean, we started touring earlier before then, but 2019 was right before the pandemic. That was our biggest year, and then we were gearing up to do even more. And
Obviously, yeah. And I mean, with San Diego, that was a huge song. It made it like, Billboard charting on like Hot AC, and like you had a couple songs that did really, really well on Billboard.
no, that was fun. Let You In and San Diego did all right there, yeah, on that record. And this new record is cool. We've already Tin Palace was on the made it to the top 30 on Billboard, and yeah, so we have high hopes, and we had got a couple. We haven't even released the whole record yet.
Right, right. Wow. I mean, it's you have such a cool like the fact that you have done so much, obviously with the mathematics and with the hedge fund and the banking, and then obviously still being able to kind of go and do your passion and then to succeed at that as well. I mean, that's so
You know
cool.
what I'll say though, Adam, is that it's not like this is my passion, and I wasn't doing banking. I mean, it was what we did was, and what we still do. The company is still around and it's still doing fine. But
Right.
it's mathematical research trying to figure out and predict markets with a bunch of
Mhm.
really, really smart, interesting people that I love working with. So I have a passion there too. I
Sure.
typically, everything I do, I tend to be passionate about. That's that's so it's when I first started doing music, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to tell people about that side of me because you know I'm just going to kind of present it as a story like, okay, but it's part of the whole me.
Hmm.
In addition to being a music nerd and really getting into lyrics and chord structure and song structure, I'm a math nerd too. All right, I love numbers and puzzles. I love puzzles and games. So it's you can't deny part of yourself.
Sure. Well, I feel like songwriting in itself is kind of you're putting together a puzzle, right? I mean, you got to come up with certain pieces and then you kind of put it all together to make it make sense. Like, do you see that as well when you're writing a song?
Oh, completely. It's the same creative muscle. It's you need an inspiration. You get a great melody for chorus. You need to know what the song's about. You need to know what's the deep emotion.
Hmm.
Then there's kind of the, okay, how am I going to tell this story in 3 verses or 4 verses? How is it going to move on so that there's new information in each verse? How am I going to make it interesting, not too obvious, not too literal, not too vague, and how am I going to hit people's emotions in a fair, authentic way that really is true to the emotion that I'm trying to express.
Mhm.
And, that's tricky, using phrases that people haven't used before.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's I'm sure that's difficult in itself to find, right? I mean, just with the amount of material that's out, it's like, okay, has this been done before? Has this been said before? And if it has, like you can take your own spin on it anyway.
The secret I find for me is to get to that really quiet place and chill, and then just let it come to you. I mean, I wake up at 4 a.m. sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the lyric. That's what I really mean, right? Or,
Mhm.
I typically work out every morning, and then I have my coffee afterwards. And after I do that, that's when the brain's going. And if I'm like, okay, let me think about that song, boom, here's the insight. And
Okay.
so and from what I understand from other people, creativity works like that in lots of people. If you're in the right state of mind, boom, all of a sudden it flows. If you're
Mhm.
not, you can sit in front of a piano forever, and you're not going to get something great. But you
Sure.
still have to put in the work. Yeah, and you have to figure out, okay, how do I get in that state more often?
Mhm. Mhm. With the band and in the current record that you've been releasing, was that like when did you get your band together? Has it been the same people that have played on the albums since the first couple that you've kept all the way through this fifth record, or have you had kind of a different flavor of people throughout the process here?
So the last three records I've had on in terms of the rhythm section, Skip Ward on bass and Dave Solomon on drums. It's been great. And they've toured with me some. It's been great. We've shifted. The touring band is now a quartet that we call the Kindred Souls,
Mhm.
and there are four of us. So Missy Saltero, who I've been playing music with for I guess more than 10 years, and John Hooley, who I met as a sax player at Santa Barbara, but also plays guitar and all sorts of things. We kind of formed the core of it and did some writing together. Everybody sings and plays, and then we added a violinist, Martha McDonald, who played with us for a while, and she got a gig on Broadway. She's in the Dylan musical on Broadway. So then
Wow.
we found Aubrey Richmond, who also plays violin and sings and also plays mandolin. And people can switch off. So that our touring configuration now is a quartet, and we all sing. We trade off the vocals. It's really cool. And then we trade off instruments too. Hools plays bass pedals along with the guitar, but he'll sometimes throw the guitar to Aubrey and then pick up a saxophone. Just kind of fun. And
Wow.
Missy, who was a singer but had always had great time, learned how to play the cajon, and so she's our rhythm section. So that touring configuration is really fun.
Okay. And
Now,
when
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So they've been on the records, the last few records, and we co-wrote maybe a third of the songs on the record. The other ones are all mine. But we tour around, and we have a blast playing together. It's really fun.
You actually answered my next question. I was going to ask if you like when you write the songs, do you present it all to the band and say, okay, here's the song, this is how it's going to go, and here's your part, or is it here's a structure of kind of what I'm thinking, let's all like jump in and collaborate.
So the ones we've written together, we've collaborated. I'm more of the taskmaster, so I make sure we get it done, and I really have a lot of focus on the lyrics. Hools is great on harmonies. Missy is our muse on inspiration, and she'll be the spark a lot of times, or the seed of something that leads the song when we collaborate. When
Okay.
it's my song, I'll take the lead on that. And I'll typically I work with Rob Mathis, who's the guy that produced the last two records. And he's been amazing, and working with him has been phenomenal. He's really great at suggesting small little tweaks, variations. I've learned a ton from him, and we've become pretty good friends working together. And
That's awesome.
I'm honored to work with him because he's worked with everyone. Sting, Elvis Costello. He does the Kennedy
I,
Center
I was
Honors.
gonna say that name sounds familiar. Like I've heard his name, or I've interviewed somebody else that he's produced before, or like the name. Right when you said it, I'm like, I think I know who this person is, or I've heard this person's name mentioned before.
He is a monster. He is really a monster. He's probably the single best arranger of strings and horns of anyone. in the world, I would say. He's that
Wow.
good. And you know, he's just brilliant. We all love him. You know, we have a couple behind the scenes videos that we put out for this record showing our process working together. But our meeting, it was I did this project in New York, trying to save a studio. It was called Avatar, and making it.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. So when he found out about it, he was like, "Who are you? Why'd you do this? Whatever you need, I'm your man."
Okay.
And the guy that made my third record, a dear friend, a guy named Rick DePafi, unfortunately got a glioblastoma, a brain tumor, and you know he was not going to be able to make another record. And he was, and so I said to Rob, you know, I mean, well, you know, I don't know if you're interested, but I need a producer. And he said, well, what about Rick? And I told him about Rick, and he said, you know, if that's what you need, let's try it. And it was cool because initially Rob thought, okay, here's this guy. He's been really successful at business. He wants to do music. Okay, you know, he's helping the world. Okay, I'll help him out. And then he got to see my drive and the intensity that I worked with on the songs and how I pushed myself. And he said, oh, okay, holy shit, I'm in this. And we become good friends. And you know, he makes time for me whenever I need it, which is just awesome. And I love it because, you know, in the beginning I would be like, okay, hey Rob, you know, here's this idea. What do you think of this? And he would deeply, deeply listen, and he would critique the heck out of it. So I learned, okay, if I'm going to show something to Rob, I got to make it the best possible. And I love that push of you know, okay, what is Rob going to say? Okay, what's Rob going to say? Okay, no, maybe let me tweak that. Let me tweak that. So for this record, it was so fun because the record before this one, he had a lot to say. When he heard the songs, he was like, yeah, no, you got to change it. This record, there wasn't that much.
Interesting.
He'd be like, I mean, he definitely put his stamp on it. And you know, there are a lot of things where it's like, oh man, that was a great idea. But most of them, he was like, oh man, that really works. That's awesome. And so the pushing and the working with him has really, really helped me grow. I'm still gonna play him all the songs I write going forward. I'm like, what do you think?
Yeah. And I'm sure he loves that. Like, because I would imagine, you know, if in the situation just being, you know, if somebody said, oh, you're like, you're a super successful business guy, you love music, so it's like, oh, I'm also writing songs. Like he could have probably been like, oh, okay, like this guy's just, you know, trying to be, you know, musician or whatever, and then sees that you're actually not only super dedicated but actually really talented. That probably kind of threw him off guard, I would think, for a second. Like, oh, okay, he actually knows what he wants. He's working really hard at it. And I wonder if you ever get like if you felt that at all in not even working with him specifically, but anyone in general, when you kind of tell them like, oh, I'm a musician, I write these records. And do you ever get that kind of like flack back at all, or no?
You know, what I like people to do is to hear the songs, hear the music, not know anything about me or the band, decide it's cool, and then learn. That's kind of a better way, as opposed to coming judging and saying, okay, what is it going to sound like and what is it about? I mean, for me though, you know, the humbling experience of saying, okay, and I think this is true for anybody playing music, you know, we all start with the same thing, right? We have our instrument, we have our thoughts, our brains. You know, you want to try to write a song that's great. You know, you want to sing it and perform it really well. You know, it's a humbling experience. You got to dive in and learn and grow. And for me, that's what makes life exciting, growing and learning and getting better at things. So that part has been so fun. Getting in front of a crowd and being able to be comfortable and confident and know that you're going to give them something that is true to yourself and that touches them. That's so fun. And doesn't happen every time, right? You sometimes you get a crowd and they're not into you, and you have to go, okay, I'm doing this show and I'm putting myself out there, and there are going to be some people in there that get it. And sometimes they just love you no matter what you do. And
right.
You know, so you know, going through that journey and understanding how to stay true to yourself it's cool. Sure.
With the tour that you got done and the record, obviously 2019, you got some momentum. You're like doing a bunch of shows, and then COVID happens and it shuts down everything. Was that when you got involved with like Berklee School of Music, or was that a relationship you had before? Because I know that you worked with them and kind of helped what venues and businesses that were struggling due to what was going on?
That's different than Berkeley. That's a charity that I started called the Live Music Society.
Okay, that has nothing to do
So
with Berkeley.
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
I'll separate those stories for you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So when we toured, I went around the country, and we're playing for these small venues.
Hmm.
20 Front Street in Lake Orion, Michigan. 7 Steps Up in Spring Lake, Michigan. Tiny little places around the country that were just wonderful. They treated us so well. The patrons were fantastic, great listening audience. People that worked there were friendly. And I just looked around and I was like, wow. And this is pre-pandemic now.
Hmm.
These people are not making a great living, but they're doing this for the love. They love music. They're loving, the community is great here. This is great. It gives people a release. And I thought, well, what can I do? I have some resources. And I thought, why don't I start a charity that kind of helps these clubs? Because some of them are, have great sound systems, but they're really bad at marketing and ticket. Some of them are good at marketing and ticketing, but they're not as good at sound systems or, figuring out how to raise money, philanthropically in the town. So can I create an organization that helps these places with best practices, lets them, retain their ownership, but just does some good in the world and gives people grants? And right until we started it, I got a bunch of friends together, put a board together, put a bunch of money into it. And we've given away a few $1 million already.
Mm-hmm.
But then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, instead of trying to help them be better, we were trying to help them to survive.
Oh, wow. So you started that before the pandemic. I didn't
Correct.
realize that. Oh, okay. Wow.
It was right before the pandemic, and then we just shifted gears and we said,
Mm-hmm.
wait a second, how can we, how can we help? So we just gave unrestricted grants up to $50,000 to a whole bunch of clubs.
It's amazing.
And just to say, go, stay. And the only thing they had to tell us was, okay, we are going to make it through. We're going to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've helped a lot of places, and it was wonderful to be able to do that.
That is so cool, because a lot of those venues are obviously the smaller ones were the ones that were closing down, and those are the ones that give the opportunity to the smaller artists, the people that are trying to, make it and play. They never played Salt Lake City, so the only spot they're going to be able to play is this room of maybe 150 people or less,
Exactly.
versus a big theater that's going to book a 1,200 seater person, artist, no matter what weekend it is.
And that's exactly that was the idea. And that these places are great because if you are starting out as an artist and you want to travel around, having a network of these places would be amazing.
Right.
But it's funny, there's so few people in the world that are like, okay, I just want to do something good. So we would call them up and say, we would advertise this and say, you could just apply for the grant. And they were like, okay, what's your angle? What do you want?
Right.
Like, no, we just want to tell you about this. And if you're interested in applying, we're giving out free. Okay, what's the angle? But what do you really want? And then, we ended up talking to people at NEVA and the people that were trying to do the Save Our Stages thing around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they, the clubs knew them and they said, no, these guys are good. they're actually, and so that made it a little easier. And now we get the grants and, we turn a lot of people away, but we give out a lot of money, and it's been really rewarding and fun. And
that's so awesome. That is so awesome, because those are the ones that you see and you're like, oh, this is so heartbreaking. This club is shutting down. They couldn't survive COVID. I mean, there's one in San Diego, the Casbah, which had a tremendous amount of support from just the city of San Diego, because it's been this iconic venue that has been there forever. And bands like Nirvana came out of there, and you'll hear these bands that have played, and it was just like so, it's just this iconic place, and it was able to survive, thank God. But I can't imagine like it going away, right? I mean, and you were saving so many of these venues that were all struggling through the same thing.
How many seats does the Casbah have?
I think it's 200, maybe.
They might be a grantee.
Oh, maybe. I mean,
familiar.
That'd be awesome if you saved them. I know that they were struggling and people were freaking out, buying their merch online and doing a lot of stuff like that to support them.
We actually did.
Oh, that's cool. Then thank you times 1,000. That's so amazing.
I knew I've never been there, but I recognize the name. Yeah.
That is so cool. I mean, that venue, people need to write you a thank you letter. Anyone that I know from San Diego that is watching this needs to write you a thank you letter, because that is so cool. That is the place that people have always latched onto. And it's about, I think, 200, maybe 250 you could squeeze in there.
Yeah, yeah, no,
But
I mean that the reason I asked you that is our criteria is up to 300, and it's funny because we've given away so many grants that I'm like, I recognize that name, but I didn't even I didn't know the club, so that's really
yeah, that is so
um,
awesome. That is so awesome. Like again, my favorite place in San Diego to ever go see shows, and they would always be the one that would have these smaller bands play there, and then they would get big. I mean, Foo Fighters played there. Bands like that you would never think. The White Stripes came through there, and it's like these people that have had this such major success all started at the first place they played in San Diego was the Casbah.
that's it, and there are a lot of these venues all around the
Hmm.
country, right? And
Yeah,
the idea is they're going to go away
right.
because it just rents keep going up, and it's hard to do it's hard to run a business. So giving them some love and some support and some money, and now with the pandemic, hopefully being over or almost over, we'll see.
Sure.
We're going to shift our attention back to okay, helping them be excellent, and there's something magical about a 200-seat venue, seeing
Hmm.
a concert, and especially if you've got a quiet audience. But even if you don't, but I mean, just the small venues are fantastic. And if you can get philanthropic community support there, if you can figure out how to help them do that, they can sustain, and that's even better.
That's
So,
so amazing.
so that's the Live Music Society. The other thing was
Was
Power Station at
was
Berkeley.
Power Station, right? That was with Berkeley, correct?
Yeah, so that is, I'm back on the board at Berkeley, but I served 9 years. And when I joined, Roger Brown, who was the president at the time, said, whenever you join the board, you have to figure out something that's your thing.
Hmm.
And I said, the thing is, right now I'm doing music, and I'm really trying to do music, and I'll try to figure out how to help Berkeley. I'm sure I'll figure something out. Well, after I did that third album with Rick DePafi, I said, okay, Rick, I need a studio in New York. I need to build something. Let me get, a studio apartment or something like that somewhere, a 1-bedroom apartment. You can build it out for me, and that's where I'm going to do all my studio stuff. It'd be great. And Rick said, okay, I'm on the hunt. I'm looking for it. And we had recorded at this place called Avatar, this iconic studio that Springsteen, Lady Gaga, the cast album for Hamilton, and 10,000 other records you've heard. It's kind of on the level of Abbey Road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And we had recorded there. And he said, Pete, and this is already after he had been diagnosed with a glioblastoma. He said, I just had this crazy idea last night. Maybe my brain isn't working, but I just thought, I heard Avatar is going to go out of business. They're going to sell it to somebody and they're going to make it a condo. And that's such a shame because everybody loves that studio, but it's just, economically not viable.
Hmm.
And what if you bought it and kind of helped make it, the Berklee School of Music, and in New York, because Berkeley's in Boston.
Right.
And you could build out the 5th floor and do a little recording studio for yourself there, and you'd be giving back. And I'd been in the building there, and kind of, you remember that movie Brazil with all the ducts and the pipes?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what the wiring of
Oh
Avatar
wow.
is like.
Okay.
They had a leak in the roof, so instead of fixing it, they would have like this pipe come down and like drain the water 2 floors so it would go someplace else. I mean, like it was that silly. And yeah, but it was this crazy iconic place, and the room sounded amazing. And then somehow I just said, well, what the hell? And I went to Roger Brown, head of Berkeley, and I said, if you find a guy that could run this project that I trust, that you trust, that could make this happen, I'll make it happen. And long story short, he did. He found this guy named Steven Weber, who was amazing. And I went to New York City and I said, hey, want to partner with us on this? You can save an iconic studio and you can bring the Berklee School of Music to Manhattan. And it was a good day. And they said yes.
Wow.
They kicked in $6 million, and we did it. And we opened a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
And first master's class was oversubscribed with 80 students. And the studio is still working. It took 4 or 5 years to rebuild it. And just this week, I wasn't in New York for it, but it was actually last night. They got a landmark conservation award. One of the
Really?
12 awards in New York. The Empire State Building was honored, and for preserving classical buildings.
Yeah.
Even though it was a studio from 1970, but it was so iconic that they got the award. The architect David Parker was there, and he did such an amazing job. So
That's
meanwhile, I'm here in
incredible.
California practicing with my band, but I'm, cheering for them. And so that was kind of the Berkeley, New York City
That's
thing.
amazing. So you can take classes there now, and it like as a part of Berkeley's master program,
It is actually,
like
yeah,
a
master's
satellite
program.
school type. Yeah.
That is where the master's program now is for Berkeley,
Oh,
right?
really? Okay. Wow.
So it's really cool. And the staff and faculty there is fantastic. And I do have that studio there, so I can record there too. And it's been a win-win for everyone.
That is amazing.
Really fun. So for me, it's just, what I love to spend my time creating and inspiring, right? I've
Mhm.
done a lot of things in life, and I'm going to hopefully keep doing them. But if you're simply just doing stuff for yourself, it gets old.
Right.
Pursuing your own success. I mean, I'm still loving writing and creating music and playing it. I'm going to keep doing that. But if I'm not giving a gift to other people, if I'm not helping other people or showing them the way, or showing them, hey, you can just kind of do this at any stage of life. You can write, you can create, and just do whatever, figure out what you want and then work hard at it.
I
That's just
love that.
me on,
I love that so much because that's the reason why my wife and I started doing this podcast. I was doing radio. I did radio for 17 years, and I was like, how do these bands, how do these people, go from little town to now they're some really established, they're making money, they're doing like what they love doing. Like, how did they do that? So just collecting stories from all these different artists and rock stars to kind of give their feedback to people that are looking for that same bit of knowledge. Like, how did the so and so get to do whatever it is? And then
What's
just
the theme that you get? Like when you've talked to so many people, right, that have been on this journey, that have achieved
yeah.
a level of success. When people ask you, what's the thing that what do you take away?
I'm gonna ask you it at the end, like about advice for aspiring artists. But a big one is always just don't give up. Like you never know when it's gonna land. It could be like a lot of times it'll be the last place you ever expect it. Like, oh, I was playing. I'm trying to think. I've heard a story where somebody was playing on the street of Santa Monica, and they had just lost the record deal, and they're playing, and somebody happened to come up while they're busking, and they worked for some label, or they were a entertainment lawyer that ended up getting them signed to a major label, and like it just changed. It just takes one person to really change everything for someone.
We can skip to that part of the advice, which is that's exactly what I will say, something very similar to that.
Okay.
And which is, but then I'll say, why do you so keep going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but understand why you're keeping going, right? So what are the things for me, when I talk to people that are managing me, about marketing strategy and all that, my eyes start glazing over. I'm like, okay, whatever, this isn't fun. When I'm hanging out with my band, writing or playing or doing cover tunes, and I'll tell you about that in a second, that's just fun for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this stuff that gives me energy, but that takes me in this direction. And I think that's the main thing, is that you have to work really, really hard. And working really hard is about, you can only do that if you know why you're doing it, or else you burn out.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to figure out a way to work that's just fun as well. Right.
Right.
And it's a combination of being driven. And if you're only trying to do music, I mean, for me, it's not about money or really fame. But if you're trying to do it for either of those reasons, it's going to be hollow. Even if you succeed, even if you make a ton of money and you get famous, there's always more. There's always more. But if you're doing it from, I just want to figure out how to be the most authentic artist I can be and have the best chance of touching somebody who's ready to hear the song and just create joy, that goes on forever. You can do that until you die. And so that's it for me. And, I find that when I get hung up, it's when I have some predetermined idea of what I want to do, what I want to have happen, as opposed to simply creating the best piece of music that I can and having fun with it.
Yeah. No, that makes that makes so much sense because it's like when it becomes, well, I'm curious because like I'll talk to artists too that'll have a hit, right? Or something will work for, say on TikTok. And then it's like, I like to ask them if they then try to replicate that same thing that they had done. And 9 times out of 10, when they try to do that, it doesn't land. And then the next thing that they don't think is going to be the next moment for them or the next song for them ends up being that particular song. It's just
Yeah,
so fascinating to me.
completely. I think one, there's a lot of randomness involved, right?
Right.
Who walks by to see you busking, right? Or who happens to hear the song you're playing in a club and decides that, hey, that'll be great for my commercial or my movie or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But there is definitely randomness, but there's also just continuing to put yourself out there and continuing to challenge yourself. I think if you play the same song over and over again, at some point, I mean, we're going to play San Diego on this tour, but maybe the tour after we'll just stop playing it for, it's just like,
Right.
okay, it's a little stale. Let's do something new.
Mhm.
And in fact, the hardest part right now is I've written a bunch of songs since Spaces, the record that's coming out.
Right.
I've
Right.
written a bunch of songs since then, and I kind of want to play those. I've played the Spaces songs a lot, but I also still love it. Fortunately, still love doing it.
When did you start writing Spaces? Has it been like since when you wrapped up 2019 in that tour and that record, or did you take
Yeah,
time during the pandemic to be like, what is going on with this world?
yeah. I'm trying to, I think 2020 was basically when the writing was happening.
Okay.
Yeah. I resurrect this song circle, and we did that through Zoom.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with some new people, some good friends, and we would go 5 or 7 week bursts, and we've done a bunch of them now. And you have to come up with a song every week, and it's really great because for me, having that deadline and being forced to write is really important. That's a piece of advice I'd give anybody that wants to write and grow, is force yourself to write on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Just figure out you have to write, but having to write a song, and everybody in the circle agrees. It's like, okay, I have to write a song. Wow, that's great discipline. And then when you're forced to do it, and some of the best songs I've written have been like, oh shit, man, Song Circle is in like 5 hours and I haven't even started. Okay, doing nothing else. Here I go. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is any good. And you play it, and they're like, oh my God, you just wrote that? That's great. And it doesn't always work like that, but
Mm-hmm.
just that pressure of a deadline and wanting to have something helps.
I like that because I've heard that advice as well. Like write a million songs, like write a 1,000 songs or whatever. Somebody will say write a song every day for a year and see what you come up with, because at one point something will eventually, I would think, click, and you're like, oh, these are getting better. These keep getting better.
I think, yeah, I think that's great advice for when you start, but you
Mhm.
also want to have some kind of feedback cycle where
I
someone,
like the feedback cycle too.
yeah, and having friends that'll listen to it and tell you what they really think, but are also encouraging. I think that's really important.
Mhm.
You want to grow as a musician, and you realize, being a musician and choosing that as your life path. For me, I always played music, and then I chose to do other things to earn a living, and I think that was a great choice for me, and I think that's a great choice for other people, because if you set yourself up so that if you do not succeed at the music, you're going to really struggle in life, that's a problem. Now you can get lucky and do that, but typically you end up, if you want to start a family, it's a hard path. But if you have a source of income that allows you to have some freedom and all that, then you can pursue the music really seriously and parallel. I think that's an easier, healthier thing. And then, of course, if you get enough success with the music, or if you're young enough and you don't have those responsibilities, and you want to give it a shot for 5 years, I think that's great. But if you're spending a lot of time doing that, and it can be a tough life.
Sure. No,
because being able, and one of the great things now though is it's possible to be an independent artist, and if you're reasonably good at finding your fans and marketing, and you're pretty competent, you can figure out a way to make a living.
Mhm.
With the way the world is working and evolving with the web, if you can actually access fans anywhere around the world, you might be able to create enough of a base, and there are enough places like Patreon that help artists do that. But you know that's a certain way of making a living. There are a lot of other ways. So I think the advice of, if you're going to do that for a living, it should be like what you have to do. It's your only choice. How's that?
Right. No, that's great. That's great. I wonder if you have any advice on marketing in general to people that are, or is that a, you know, I mean, I would think that that's a huge, probably part of the music in general, right? Like how you could write a great song, but how do you get people to hear it?
You know, that's a challenge. I think I'm still working on that.
Okay.
I'm still working on that. How do you crack that code? I mean, we've
Right.
got radio. There are different ways to do that. But finding how to engage with. I haven't reached a place where I'm engaging with thousands of listeners, so I'm probably the wrong person to give that advice, except to say, be really authentic. Present yourself. Not an image you want to project of yourself, not something that you think people are going to like, but just be yourself and shine as brightly as you can, and you know, show your flaws and your vulnerabilities, and but just be real. And if you have an audience, they're gonna be attracted to that.
I love that.
Think it's the main thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I cannot wait for the rest of the record to come out. I've had a chance to hear it, and I love it. I love the video you did for Tim Palace is amazing, and everything that you have coming out on this new record is really, really impressive.
Thanks. That was my friend Chris Morgan, who's actually hanging out with the band here in California, and he's so great, so creative, and you know, lucky to be able to work with him. That's yeah, he's got such a great eye. So what else did you like on the record? Did you do?
I was listening. It was the God and Democracy. Is that on? That's this record too, right?
That actually, you know, that was an in-between song. We wrote
It was
that,
an in-between song. Okay.
you
Because
know,
I heard, I gotta find the thing now, the link. I don't know if there was song titles on here. Oh, there was. Okay. I like the 8th song, Gone. That's a good one.
we just released the video for that. And
Okay.
that's it's interestingly, that was the song that the people in the band thought had the most emotional resonance.
It's a great song. It's a great song. When I listened to the record, I remember I'm more on song because I'll be listening to it when I'm driving or listening to it when I'm just around the house, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, song number 8, that was a good one. Then mental note, mark it down, and okay, that I haven't seen the video though. I need to check out the video.
It just came out. I think it was like a week or two ago. We just hit it. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, what was the concept behind the video, since I haven't seen it?
So we shot it, half of it in Topanga Canyon in this really cool geodesic house.
Oh, cool.
And the other half in the hills of Santa Barbara, near where I was. And, you know, it's about being angry and getting over it and seeing to the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea was going to be simply me looking emotional in the video and playing the piano. And then we were going to have a female figure in there. And Gus Black, who directed it, brought his friend Melody Casta, who's this gorgeous French actress. And she would, you know, basically the whole idea was you were just going to see a silhouette of her in the background walking away and all that. And then I saw her, and I just like saw the expression on her face, and I said, we need to film her walking around and being emotional and sad too. And we did, and I mean, she killed it. So she's half the video. It came out wonderful. I mean, you just want to look at her, which is great. But yeah, you know, it's just like walking in the house, and you know, it's just, you feel the emotion of the song when you do it. And then the end of the video, we filmed in the Mesa in Santa Barbara, and got a couple German shepherds, and they were walking along with me. And it was
I love it. Kind
of cool. We had to drive up from Topanga and race up just to make it in time for sunset. Just run out to the Mesa. And
oh wow!
All the camera equipment, but we got it done. And it's really fun.
That's cool. Are there any other videos that you have for the songs coming out?
Yeah. We filmed "Light Up the Night," which is, we're going to release that with the album on May 20th, and that was Lenny Bass, who directed the let you in video from the last record, which was our most successful.
Okay.
For us, that's success. We had over 1 million views on YouTube.
I mean, that's successful. That's successful for anybody.
that was great. So he did that one, and that's a duet with Missy Saltero as well. And we filmed that at this kind of let's just say downscale motel in Oxnard. And so the story has I'm in one room playing the keyboard and Missy's in another room singing, and it's like the band's on tour, and there's this couple that they're not really a couple. They're both going through something emotional and something tough and kind of processing it. And Light Up the Night is about getting back in touch with yourself. Mm-hmm. And so the visuals are, these two different people in a hotel, and we're singing in our rooms, and they're kind of like emerging, and then all of a sudden the room starts lighting up and glowing, as if there's this realization that happens at the end of the song. And then Hools, who's in our band, all of a sudden shows up with a guitar, and Martha couldn't make it, but we green screened her on a TV playing a violin solo.
Oh, so that's cool. That's really cool.
It came out really great. So we got that one, and there's one more video that we've actually got in the bag called The Other Side. And that one features a ton of dancing in a diner. That is just a feel-good song. Mm-hmm. That's a song about when your partner, your spouse, your partner, whatever, is grumpy, and you have to get them to the other side.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of, is that early on in the record? I can't remember what number on the track listing, but I know this. I know exactly what song you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And that one's going to be coming out in like 2 weeks. We're going to release the video.
Oh, cool.
The single won't hit, but the video is going to, and that one's I love them all. I love all the videos. It's really, they're really fun.
Is it fun to shoot those and do that side of it?
That was totally fun. When I first started doing this, I was like, wait a second, I don't know if I want to be in front of a camera and doing that. And then each subsequent one I shot, I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is great. I mean, eventually I think it gets old if you're shooting a lot of videos. I talk to my friends in successful bands, and they're like, oh man, I hate the video shooting process. I'm still in the, oh my God, this is really fun. Let's take a day and just play and have a good time. So
I love it. And there's at least on the copy of the record that I have, there's a few bonus songs. Are those going to be on the actual release, or are those being held back for other reasons?
So we're releasing 12 songs on Spaces, and then those 3 bonus tracks that you heard will be in a 2 LP set.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't think will be available for, I don't know, maybe 5 months from now. You hear about delays in production, but you can't you can't print stuff quickly. So
right. Of course,
we'll have to wait for that till September.
Okay, well they'll be stoked on that, because I really like those songs as well. They'll be worth the wait for sure.
We recorded 15, and I thought, okay, we have to narrow it down for the release, but I want to share everything because we really put effort into all of them. So
they're great. Yeah, all great songs. And you are doing a tour? Is that what you sent as well?
We are. We're just putting it together. We're going to be. We'll do a party in New York, and we're going to do a party in Santa Barbara, and then we're doing a number of venues in California. Where else are we going? We're going to Boston, New York State, Nashville. We're playing City Winery Nashville.
Really? When is that? I'm in Nashville now.
Are you really? Are you in that? Oh, you got to come see it. May 17th.
Oh, I'm going to be there. May 17th. Okay.
May 17th. Yeah. Would love to have you.
I'll write that down right now so I don't forget.
We'll put you on the list.
That'd be so fun.
Yeah, we've played there before, and love that venue. It's great. Awesome, and we'll be going. And I think we're gonna do something in Alabama. That's not confirmed yet. We have a whole bunch of other dates, and then we're gonna go out more in July, and we'll be in Michigan and Colorado. And, it's part of it for me is I can't tour 200 days a year. I think 50 is kind of the most I could do. And
that's a lot.
I mean, I have a family,
right, of course.
But it's great. And, cultivating fans and places, and, getting the experience of playing stuff live, that really helps you grow as a musician. It's really fun. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really, really appreciate it, Pete.
My pleasure, Adam. It was really fun talking to you. It's and I'm gonna go gonna go down to rehearse with the band now and play some music. So
Amazing. Thank you so much again.
Bringing it backward.